Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. Coming up, who won the most and who made the biggest improvements in the 2021 road season? Cillian Kelly will be bringing you all the stats on that. We've also got the mind-blowing return of Wout van Aert to Cyclo-Cross, the finale of the UCI Track Champions League in London, and yet more transfer news. First up, it's fairly obvious who the most successful riders of 2021 were on the road, but as ever, Cillian Kelly likes to delve a little bit deeper. So I'll hand you over to him now for his latest stat attack.
The riders in the men's peloton with the most wins this year were... we don't even need a drum roll for this, as it's entirely predictable. Primož Roglič, Tadej Pogačar and Wout van Aert, all of whom won 13 races. This is actually the first time ever that there's been a three-way tie for this particular ranking. But as always with these kinds of stats, it's often interesting to try and consider them in a more oblique way so that we can learn something perhaps we didn't already know. Most wins in total is one thing, and to be celebrated of course, but these guys win big every year. What about the riders who were the most improved from 2020 to 2021? Which riders increased their number of wins the most from last year to this year? In men's cycling, in joint third place of most improved number of wins, it's Sonny Colbrelli and Elia Viviani, who both increased their number of wins by 7, with Colbrelli only winning 1 race last year and Viviani winning none. In second place, with an increase of 8 wins this year, it's the up-and-coming British sprinter Ethan Hayter. But the most improved male cyclist of 2021, with an increase of 10 wins, was another up-and-coming British sprinter, Mark Cavendish. As we all know by now, Cavendish didn't win a race last year or the year before, and his return to form this year was nothing short of spectacular. The climax of which was of course those 4 stage wins at the Tour de France to equal Eddie Merckx's record of 34. So his 10 wins this year were a true return to the form Cavendish had previously shown year in, year out. There is though, I think, a spread of reasons for these riders to have ended up at the top of a category of most improved riders. Viviani is somewhat similar to Cavendish in that he's bouncing back. In Viviani's case, he had a stinker of a year in 2020 after joining Cofidis, and he's now on the way out of Cofidis back to Ineos Grenadiers, where he rode between 2015 and 2017. Hayter is somewhat different. He's at the other end of his career, the beginning, and is very much improved in the true sense of the word rather than merely coming back. He's only been a pro for 2 years, and in his first year he only rode 15 race days, so Hayter is clearly on the rise. For Colbrelli, it's harder to tell. He's 31, so he's much more in the middle part of his career. He's averaged about 4 wins a year for the last 10 years, and with 1 win last year and 8 wins this year, we've probably just caught him after a bit of an annus mirabilis, culminating of course in that incredible mud-caked win at Paris-Roubaix. Now, because wins aren't everything, I thought I'd perform this same trick with the UCI rankings. That system awards points for placings as well as wins. So who is the most improved rider across the board? The answer would probably be cause for alarm for all his rivals and for all of men's cycling, because the answer is Tadej Pogačar. Yeah, the man who won the Tour de France in 2020 improved so much in 2021 that he increased his UCI points by 2,308, more than any other rider. To put that number into some kind of perspective, around 4,500 points is usually enough to be leading the UCI rankings. Granted, the UCI ranking has a top-heavy weighting towards Grand Tours and monuments, but then it should be weighted that way, shouldn't it? And Pog won 3 of them during what was one of the most impressive years by any rider ever. And honestly, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that he could improve on that again in 2022. Now on the women's side, back to considering wins only, there was a 3-way tie for first place in most improved. With 5 more wins in 2021 compared to 2020, the most improved riders were Emma Norsgaard, Lucinda Brand and Marlon Reusser. Brand is perhaps not a surprise. She's been ripping it up on the cyclo-cross scene for years, and she would always usually combine that with a full road season. Apart from last year, when she barely raced on the road, just 9 days in total. So she brought her wins from 0 to 5. Much like Viviani and Cavendish, Brand's year was something of a return to form. Norsgaard and Reusser, however, are the more orthodox improvements of a career with an upward trajectory, although Reusser's orthodoxy is offset by her unorthodox age. For someone at this stage of her career, feels like she's only getting started even though she's already 30, and it's because, well, she is only really getting started, having only taken up cycling in 2017. And if you're wondering who the equivalent of Pog is on the women's side, which rider improved most when it comes to UCI points, the answer is Annemiek van Vleuten, which again is quite an intimidating thing. She scored 2,242 points in 2020 and she scored 5,035 this year. That improvement of 2,793 points is more points than most riders scored in 2021. Only 3 other riders managed to score more outright than Van Vleuten improved by. They were Longo Borghini, Vos and Vollering. Van Vleuten is 39 now, but continues to defy the trajectory that someone her age would or should normally be following. Maybe she's the reason Chris Froome still thinks he can win another Tour de France. And who knows, maybe he can. Maybe this time next year, when we review the most improved riders of 2022, the old Froome dog himself will be top of the list.
I am presuming from that final shake of the head that Cillian isn't full of confidence about Froome returning to the top of the sport. But then we thought that about Cavendish, didn't we? And I think we'd all like to see Froome get to some sort of decent level again next year, even if he doesn't quite get back to the heights of his career. Don't forget, you can get more of Cillian's stat attacks on GCN Plus on the World of Cycling, which will return when the road season resumes next year. On to Cyclo-Cross now though, and despite the Antwerp round of the UCI World Cup being cancelled, we still had some top level and very muddy action at the Super Prestige in Boom on Saturday. The men's race marked the season debuts for both Wout van Aert and Tom Pidcock, with everyone wondering how they'd fare against the likes of Toon Aert and Ellie Iserbyt, who've dominated the early part of the season. Well, the answer, in Van Aert's case, was quite well. He'd managed to make his way up from the middle of the grid to the front group by the end of the first lap. And then already on the second lap, he rode a steep bank that everyone else had to run. Aerts did manage to get back up to him, but a mistake then saw him slip back and lose contact. And from that point, the gap rose and rose and rose. He was basically on a completely different level. Now, I was sitting at home watching with my son Jude, and I just said to him, Van Aert is a beast. And he is. And there's really no other way to describe him. He made the rest of the pros in that race look like juniors. And despite falling himself on one of the final laps, he crossed the line 1 minute and 40 seconds clear of Aerts in second place. And Aerts' teammate Lars van der Haar a further 8 seconds back in third. In his post-race interview, Van Aert said how surprised he was to have raced so well at his first cyclocross race of the season, but I think that surprise pales into insignificance when compared to his stunned competitors. Aerts went as far as admitting that it could be a Christmas period without any victories for the rest of them, possibly also, I guess, thinking about Van der Poel's imminent return as well. But this is what he had to say about his performance on the day.
How are you? You had some crashes during the race.
Yeah, indeed. I was the last rider, I think, who can follow the wheel of Wout. But the pace was really high for me. I have to suffer a lot to follow him in that lap. And at the end of the lap, I made a mistake, and that was what cost me the reason to follow out. So it was difficult because I lost a lot of places with that crash. But when I'm back at the front riding for place 2, I crash again. So that was again a bummer. So it was a really tough race mentally.
Pidcock's season debut was a little less smooth. A number of crashes throughout the race saw him yo-yoing between 2nd and 10th place for much of the race, and he'd eventually have to settle for 7th. However, he still stood out from the crowd because somehow, despite all that mud and all the crashes, his British national champion skin suit remained remarkably white. We put a video up on Twitter about this, and Tom quoted that tweet saying simply, "Magic bio racer technology." Mysterious, but there must be something in it. His race number was unreadable, his face completely covered with 2 eyes shining through, but much of the rest of his skin suit seemed completely repellent to mud. If you know anything about it, please let us know in the comments section below. In the women's race, it was once again Dutch domination. Inge van der Heijden set the early pace, but already on lap 2, world champion Lucinda Brandt had got the engine up to speed and was moving clear of the rest. And that was basically how it remained for the rest of the race. Brandt came to the line 37 seconds clear of van der Heijden to take her 4th Super Prestige win of the year, whilst Denise Betsma managed to make her way back up to 3rd after a shoe change cost her a lot of places on lap 2. Canada's Magali Rochette pulled out another great ride to finish 4th on the day, whilst another standout performance came from 17-year-old Zoe Backstedt, who finished 9th, just a handful of seconds behind multiple world champion Sanne Cant. There is more cyclocross coming up for you this weekend as well, with the next round of the Cross from Essen on Saturday, and then what should be a snowy round of the UCI World Cup from Val di Sole in Italy on Sunday. Toon Aert, Lucinda Brandt and Lars van der Haar will be amongst those not racing that round, as the Trek Baloise team are headed to a warm weather training camp. Here's what van der Haar had to say on Saturday when asked if he regretted that decision.
Well, you're going to the sun now, so that might be a comfortable thought.
Probably after a shower also in the camper I'll feel a lot better.
Do you regret not racing next weekend?
No, not at all.
Thanks.
Doesn't sound like he's too concerned, does it? Anyway, the Cross is available to watch everywhere except for Belgium, but there are more restrictions on the World Cup. You can catch that in Europe except for Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Italy and Belgium. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any UCI Track Champions League to bring you this week, as the final round was due to take place on Saturday in Tel Aviv, but like the UCI Cyclo-Cross World Cup in Antwerp, it was cancelled due to fears of the new Omicron variant. And that meant that the final 2 rounds of the inaugural series took place in London on Friday and Saturday nights. Now, unfortunately, 3 Dutch riders, including Jeffrey Hoogland, were unable to compete, having either tested positive for COVID-19 or, in Hoogland's case, being in close contact to someone that had. Anyway, in the endurance women's events, Katie Archibald continued her domination, winning the elimination on Friday after employing the risky strategy of racing it from the back. She then went on to finish 3rd in the scratch race behind Kirsten Wild, then on Saturday continued with her consistency, finishing 2nd in the scratch and going 1 better in the elimination.
Here's the bell, final round. Katie Archibald picks it up on a wall of sound here. Then she's nearly taken the roof off. This is amazing. Phil's not giving up at all, though. She's holding that line, but Katie Archibald has broken her, and she's gone through here. Brilliant work by Archibald. Fabulous race as well by Kirsten Wild. Very much a part of the drama.
So in the end, her overall win in the series was a comfortable one. 45 points clear of Wild in 2nd, with Annette Edmondson a further 3 points back in 3rd. And there's some news about all 3 riders from that podium. Archibald will race for the Sarah Tizet WNT Pro Cycling team for the next 3 years on the road, a team she last raced for, incidentally, in 2017. Whilst for Edmondson and Wild, Saturday marked their final races as pro athletes at the end of 2 very successful careers. Congratulations to both of you on everything you've achieved, and all the best for what comes next. In the men's endurance, it was Sebastian Mora of Spain who was leading the series going into those final 2 rounds, and he held on to that through Friday with 3rd places in both races. However, a strong performance from Gavin Hoover in the elimination put him within 5 points of the series lead. So, it all rested on Saturday's results, and ultimately, the final win came down to a demotion. Here's what happened in the scratch race.
Well, how close can Gavin Hoover get to him? And is he just going to tee up Moravedri? Oh, Moravedri's been divorced. Hoover's up there, crash we've got as well. Moravedri's off the case. Can Gavin Hoover pick it up and get a decent finish here? I think he may well have 3rd, possibly 2nd on his mind, but the bell's already gone. It's already over. What a finale that was. Gavin Hoover does score points here, but Moravedri far fewer. It's going to get tighter at the top.
Mora was deemed to have caused that crash, and with the points lost, Gavin Hoover ended up in top spot in the overall standings, with Corbin Strong in 3rd. In the sprint events, the most decorated male rider on the start line would end up taking the overall honours. Harry Lavreysen of the Netherlands was incredibly consistent over all 4 rounds, as he has been for the whole season. He finished 2nd to Stefan Bottker in the Keirin and then won the sprint. An event, incidentally, in which he's now unbeaten for 2 years. Here's how he took the final event of the series.
We're coming into our final lap right now, and Lavreysen has an advantage, but some rush room here for Bottger. Can he make it count? He's in that aero pocket right now, and he comes out into the wind at the very last. 2, 3, through 4. Can he get there on the line? No! It's Lavreysen that takes it, and is our worthy champion. Brilliant!
Lavreysen is also a beast, isn't he? He'll get a well-earned break now after an incredibly successful year on the boards. In the women's, it was much closer going into the final evening. Emma Hind's advantage in the series was slashed after she crashed and then was eliminated in the Keirin on Friday, allowing fellow German Leah Friederich to close to just 2 points ahead of the final day. However, in finishing fourth in the Keirin and winning the sprint event on Saturday night, Hind extended her lead to 10 points to take the title. Kelsey Mitchell, who finished second in both the sprint and Keirin on the final round, clinched third place in the series. So that's the UCI Track Champions League done and dusted for this year. We hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly had a lot of great feedback about the new format, and we're already looking forward to bringing it to you live again next year. In other news, Patrick Lefevre, who's previously said he's not interested in putting money into women's cycling, is now set to sponsor the NXTG Women's Development Team with his Experza company next year. That news came around the same time as De Koning revealed that they will be sponsoring Alpecin Fenix next year, citing a will to back women's cycling as the reason for the move, which the company owner said Lefevre had been reluctant to do. And that leads us nicely onto our final bit of news this week. Alpecin Fenix's latest recruit is the sprinter Jakub Mareczko. The Italian has 44 career victories to his name so far. I'm sure he'll be hoping to get more success in top European races in his new team. OK, that's all for today. Join us again next week, same time, same place. Hopefully I'll see you then.